today's kind of our last segment in looking at backward design and really taking that idea of how do we design a course. And through backward design, it's starting with what do you want people to remember? So the scenario I love to see people think about, and I always think about it in my head as I'm doing this process, is what do I, if I were to bump into one of my students 3 years from now or 5 years from now, walking down the street, what were the three things that I want them to be able to tell me about my class that they learned in my class? And really think about that as my learning outcomes for my class. If they could give me those three things 3 years from now, boy, I would feel like I accomplished everything. And that's really where I start my class design, is that idea. What do I want them to walk away with? Then step two was what we hit last week. How do I design my assessments to make sure it reflects those objectives or those outcomes I'm looking for? What do I write in my test to make sure I'm testing that they actually gathered that information and committed it to long-term memory? And now this week, what we want to explore is, now that I know what my test looks like, what are the assignments and activities that I should be putting together to reflect and prepare them for that test that will then ensure that they have those learning outcomes that I want in my environment. So that's really the design process and the flow that we're looking for. So that was kind of what I put up there for videos, was a little bit of that area. So did all of you get a chance to take a look at any of the videos or get a chance to look through? Any thoughts? Hey, Jackie, oh, probably a little early. Hey, Jackie. So we're just getting started here.
Hi there.
Welcome. All right, so anybody, any thoughts on the videos?
I liked how one of the videos she talked about, we're not, we knew we weren't the sage on the stage, right, on the online stuff. But I liked how she really talked about us kind of guiding the students to the information. I am realizing more and more, I give my students a ton of content. I'm constantly pushing them the content. And then I get frustrated because they don't look at it all. They don't examine it all. So I think that was eye-opening for me, is that, okay, maybe I need to do more activity to draw them to it, to engage with the material even more.
Yeah, the fire hose, sometimes you can look and see that look in the eye where it says, oh gosh, here's all this information. And that's a little harder to deal with this online world, because you don't get that same level of feedback and you can't look and gauge as easily, I don't think. So certainly looking at those activities and how do you change those up in this online world we're dealing with.
Well, and where I get frustrated a little bit and where it's tough is that in OT, we have tons of standards. Like I have literally 20 standards in my one pediatric course that I have to make sure that I adjust or I address in some way or another. And so those are written as as part of those learning objectives. So, when we talk about, oh, we've got 3 objectives for your class, well, I've got a class that I've got 20 in. So it's kind of like, how do you capture, because I have to prove that the students have met these objectives by the end of the semester. And it is the way in which they meet it. Is it testing, like we were talking last week? Is it assignments? How, I don't know. I'm just curious as to how others are meeting those objectives.
Any thoughts out there, folks? And when I talk about 3 to 5, that's really just the getting started, because I think most classes you're going to want far more than that. But it's that first, okay, these are my top tier. I have to nail these. But there's certainly other ones along the way, and you may have 20 top tiers. But those are kind of things to look at and really think about those objectives, regardless of the number. as you think about how do I design my test, and then how do I build the activity to build toward those pieces. Hi, Marla, thanks for joining in.
Sure. Sorry. I have my mouth full.
Oh, perfect. I'm a perfect waiter, even though I can't see your video. I am a perfect waiter. I know exactly how to time that question when you have a mouthful. So any thoughts on helping address those needs and really defining activities?
So I have some points here, Mark. Actually, I really like the ideas those videos are saying about it's more important for the students to learn rather than they are just getting the contents. And that's what I have been trying since we moved online more and more. My courses moved online. I'm trying to make them more interactive rather than just me lecturing. However, the challenge which I have faced during these times, there are some students who are very traditional in their style of learning, and they are missing those just regular lecture parts, you know. So now I am kind of in a situation where I have to find a right balance of not just focusing too much on activities, but I have to give them lecture as well, you know. Whereas other group of students are on a very different level, they are actually liking more the interactive part, you know. So those are some of the challenges which I have faced in the recent times.
Any thoughts or comments on that challenge? It's always a balancing act of trying to address those. And that's what I really like about our LMS now, is you can certainly put your lecture up there as content that they can go. So those students that are used to, yeah, I want to just watch the PowerPoint and get the material and be ready to go, can get that. But then doing those enrichment activities is a fantastic way to engage the other students that have maybe just a little different learning style. Anybody else use different approaches to address students with different learning styles in their material?
Well, when I was teaching an undergraduate, using that combination of having those PowerPoints and having a voiceover lecture online was good, because it kind of dealt with, you know, the students that want spoon-fed plus the ones that like to work ahead. But it's having that mixture that is so important, because when you're giving a lecture, you know, it's just providing them all the knowledge, but they have to be able to apply it. And so, you know, it kind of follows along with that flipped classroom kind of mentality too, by having both of those kind of things going.
Yeah.
Here, actually, Mark, I found the things which we have learned for engaging our unprepared or underprepared students or less prepared students to be more useful, so that they are remaining a little bit more prepared when they are coming to these classes. Because when a class is more interactive, the students have to be much more prepared,
Exactly.
you know. So I think that's where those information are kind of helping me a little bit, but I am very open to know if there are any other suggestions or advices out there, you know.
Part of it, and if you've been on before, you've probably heard me say this a lot, but the challenge for a lot of these students is they've learned to play the game of education. And they know exactly what to expect in a class. And the idea is I sit back and I open my head and you dump in the knowledge, and then I close my head and I walk out the door and I'm done. I don't really have to interact. And they've gotten so ingrained in the way that they learn that that's the expectation. So part of what you're facing is going to be just a matter of time, getting them used to seeing those interactions and that expectation that, you know, you don't get to just sit back in my class, you have to participate. And for the folks that really truly have lab environments, students have a different expectation. They know they're not going to be able to sit in the back seat and gather that information. They have to be engaged and go, well, guess what? In this class that maybe you thought it was going to be a lecture, you better put on your lab coat, because it's going to be more like a lab environment than it is me just standing up there lecturing for you. So some of it's just going to take time. and changing our students' expectations, but how do we help them get there?
One of the things we've been doing is actually having the students, because let me take a step back. We have lecture classes that are online because we're hybrid, and then we have our lab classes. So in order to get them prepared to come to lab ready to talk and engage, they have to complete tasks that are from the lecture material. So it could be a worksheet, it could be a discussion, it could be all sorts of different things, but that prepares them to come to class ready to engage. And that's on the OT side, that's been helpful with that. But now I struggle with the classes and the engagement when they don't have the lab component that they know that they have to engage in. It's the other stuff that doesn't have that. In their minds, I think some of it's less important.
Now it comes to quiz time.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that backward design comes in helpful, is if you know what's going to be on the quiz, making those activities then align with your quizzes. Students start to understand that I have to take part in this piece to be ready for a quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on activities or things that you do?
So Michelle, I have a quick question. When you make them do the worksheets, do you always associate values to them, or they are just, how do you make them do that work? Because sometimes if they don't have any values to them, they can skip them and just say, I didn't do it.
Well, we have participation points to it. And actually, I just had this discussion with Melissa Kimmerling this week. We have professionalism and participation points. So what she'll do is she'll go through and she'll hand check maybe like 10 of them. We have them turn it in. And then if they didn't do it, they don't get their participation points. So so that's another way that you can engage them too, is just say, you know, I will be checking them sometime during the semester, and you won't get those points if you don't do it. Plus, you know, I think some of it is also the peer pressure, because you begin to figure out who's done the work and who hasn't. And you can really call on somebody who hasn't done the work, and that'll be the last time they not come to class prepared. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
I would also encourage you to use the badges and the certificates as something, as an additional motivation that's out there. It's been really interesting to watch the whole Dove credit idea, because very few people were accessing our training. And the minute the badges and credits and things got out there, and of course there was a requirement to complete X number, but it's amazing to watch how many people are way beyond what the requirement is at this point. So we have people that have surpassed 10 credits. They needed to do 4 by July, and they're well past 10 credits at this point. So there's that intrinsic motivation of, hey, I got this. It's a stupid piece of digital artwork, but it's just that, hey, I accomplished this, that tends to help as well.
Well, I've even thought too, could you do something like that to say, you know, at the end of the semester, you have to have, you know, 10 badges in your turned in work or something like that to get a value of points or something at the end.
It'd be a great way to track that and see. And you can run a report anytime you want on what students have done, what activities, so you know exactly what's gone on. And that gives them a little bit of flexibility too. You know, this week's been really terrible on me. I don't have time to do this, but I know that now I'm going to have to do 2 activities at some point to get caught up on my points, or you know, I've got enough leeway that I've done the early ones, I can let it off a little bit. So that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, actually, this is a really a good idea. I'm thinking that perhaps I'll open up some of my past activities for the students in case they want to come back and do them now. And then if I can reward them with some kind of badges, as you were suggesting, you know, It doesn't necessarily have to be points, but thank you so much.
I like that idea of buying points with badges. You have to get X number of badges to get your points, and that gets their participation points. Great idea. Any other activities people are using? Part of the reason I kept the video piece, that second video in, was really looking at some of the other tools that are out there to engage students in creating video. It seems like a lot of our faculty have figured out that I can use video and record my lectures and present the video, but we're not seeing as many people using it the other direction of students creating videos and proving that they have the knowledge in that way as well. So are there people that are looking at tools like that, or have they had any experience there?
Mark, I haven't been using them with the students doing the video, but I started doing video feedback where I have their document up, and I have done a few of the track changes on it, but I just talk it through instead of putting all these 10 million comments on the thing, and the students love it, the MSN students.
Great. That's fantastic. I know you get a little different emotion out of that, and they get a better read for it instead of just a comment that you copied and pasted onto the paper or scribbled on there. So there's certainly some value to that. And I think you're right. The student feedback I hear all the time is that they love it.
And it takes less time.
I was going to add, that was going to be the next question is, do you find that it takes more time or less time? Because
Oh, way less time.
Okay, good to hear. Good to hear.
I find on that, I still want to give them, like I got in there and I used the sticky notes and added like just little tiny comments on the sticky notes in different places. And then I do the video feedback in this last time, because I always felt like I had to get dressed up before I did the video feedback. So like this last time I just did the audio and cranked through it in my pajamas, and it was, far easier to do it that way.
What I've been doing is recording the feedback. Like I'll pull up, because it's usually documents, like I've been using it in Capstone. So they've been writing sections of their paper and stuff. And so I record it on my iPad. I pull up the document on my iPad, record it. So all they see, they just hear me talking through the whole paper or whatever section they wrote. Of course, then I upload it to my Google Drive so I can have a link, but it's still, they just love it. And it makes more sense, and they're doing so much better with it too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great work. I had one faculty member say that she was doing it, and what she did was actually used a Memoji. I don't know if all of you have seen the Memojis that you can do on your iPads now, but you can do an animated video of yourself. And her comment was, I can do all my video feedback and lecture recording, and I don't have to worry about a shower.
I got to figure that one out.
Actually, yeah, Mark, I was thinking that, those Memoji tools are so great, but I still don't know how to exactly use those Memojis for creating comments. Actually, if you can give all of us some kind of, information on how to use those Memojis, that'd be great.
I think I've got a TNT on that already, but I'll dig it up and send it out to everybody again, because it probably went by people and you didn't get a chance to see it. So I'll dig that up, but it's really pretty simple to do.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Alice and Lane, thanks for joining in.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, not a problem. That's the fun part of conversations, is you can jump in the middle and not feel like you missed the whole lecture just because, but we're talking about alignment today of backward design. So starting with your learning outcomes, and today then assignments, and how do I align those to my learning outcomes at the end of the class that I'm looking for.
I'm in the wrong. I just thought I would add to the discussion I was hearing as I came on late, and I apologize for being late.
No problem.
I'm not sure what's working, because I've used also, I've used the notes and I've used the video recordings and I've used audio recordings and so applying it all seems to have helped, but I don't know if one is being more effective than the other because I haven't had time to figure that out yet.
The great news is it sounds like something's working.
Yeah.
That's great. Good work.
Don't you think, Lane, that just using a variety, I mean, if all you give is video, that's not going to appeal to some students. So I try to use a variety that I appeal to the auditory learners this week and I appeal to the visual learners because, I mean, we're doing it for the student. So, you know, just using a variety of feedback techniques to me, just like you teach your course is the best approach, because I would love it if somebody gave me all video or audio feedback, but you know, I got 2 kids that would hate it. So I think you just have to use a variety.
Right, I agree. Yeah.
I do think as we're training, like in my case, future healthcare workers and training students to go out into clinics, I love the audio feedback because that's how they'll be getting feedback from their fieldwork educators in the clinical setting. So I think it's a great way for them to learn how to take that feedback and make that adjustment on the other side.
You know, the interesting thing I teach, I just got done teaching healthcare policy, and it's a tough course because it moves a lot of people out of their comfort zone. And Michelle's laughing because she's taken the course. You know, and part of it was COVID, I'm sure, but I taught just one section and I had 19 students in it. And I counted up the number of phone calls that I had with students over that 10 weeks, and I had over 40. And the key, I think, was it wouldn't have mattered what kind of feedback I gave them. They needed to have a discussion about it. Because, you know, I was saying things that depending on where they were in their career, especially for the nursing students, that's just not something they naturally gravitate to. And so, you know, there were students that didn't even understand how a law becomes a policy, which you know, I mean, granted, I've been doing this for a very long time, but it's like, wow, I think I learned that in 4th grade. And so I think we just have to really have that conversation many times and get that back and forth dialogue, because what I found is if I gave feedback and the student came back with a bunch of questions, I immediately said, let's set up a phone call, because otherwise we're going to play back and forth tag for a very, very long time. And, you know, there's one student I spoke to 7 times in 10 weeks,
Wow.
but, you know, I mean, her growth was tremendous. And so no matter how we give feedback, I think we just have to be open to, let's have a synchronous conversation. Oh, you're
muted, like.
Sorry, Alice and everyone, I just wondered if you have tried using a private discussion post to have conversations in writing, or is that
usually
not
not online the same time I am, you know, so again, it's, and I'll be honest, I'm a very auditory person. I can read what you say to me and I can go a million ways, but if I hear it, I totally understand where you're coming from. So it really does play to my strengths and how I learn and how I communicate. So I don't know that I very rarely have been on where I've actually had a student on that has communicated with me that way. And if it has, it's been nice to see you on. That's all they say. They don't have.
Has anybody else tried it? I just sort of wondered what the private discussion post, how that would be different than just emailing back and forth.
I use private discussion posts for capstone because they do them in groups. And so it's just private between me and the group. And so they'll have a question about an assignment and stuff, and then we try to go back and forth. And if it goes back and forth more than twice, then it's a phone call or a WebEx, you know, or something like that. So.
Mhm. Yeah, I've used WebEx for group discussion.
Are you just using the discussion forum within Brightspace to do your private discussions, or do you use some other external tool?
No, Brightspace.
Lane, what were you thinking when you asked the question?
I was thinking about the Brightspace tool
Okay, great.
because I'd learned about it recently.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
I was thinking back to that first video about the whole butcher paper, and as much as I'm a technology person and a whiteboard person, I love the image of the butcher paper and just laying it out and saying, let's design this. And you might see me in my office sitting down with paper. As much as I'm a tech person, there's a lot of times I work on paper and draw it out and go. And the funny part is I may snap a picture then and drop it into my Notability of the paper diagram that I drew rather than starting on the paper. But that image I really liked. Anybody thinking about that whole butcher paper blueprint idea?
You know, Mark, I was thinking about that. So we're in 2022, we'll be at the 5-year mark of our EDD program. And so we're doing a program review. And so, you know, as I was looking at that video, I think that's certainly we're going to have our crosswalks about how each course feeds into the program outcomes and all that typical stuff. But I think it would be good for faculty to take each course and view it from this backwards design sort of thing, because we know sometimes assignments morph and not always for good reason, or you know, and so I think that, I mean, I wrote it down as something as how to provide that structure for our EDD program review, because we'll be doing that in fall of 21 and spring of 22.
I think that's a great idea, Alice, because I found that in the MSN program, I don't think anything had really changed in a long time. And remember when I asked you about tying those BSN essentials to the MSN essentials to our course outcomes? And when I went through all those course outcomes and stuff to find out which ones they tied to, it was unbelievably just way too much. And it's just like, how did they tie this to that, you know? And I don't think they changed their outcomes, and that was just tying their course outcomes to the program outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and are the assignments measuring all the program outcomes? Because sometimes people get rid of assignments. Yeah, so it's just, I think, you know, I mean, I've always been taught to do a program eval every 5 years where you start from ground zero and you look at every piece of it. So, yay, that's what we're doing. Well,
good.
I
haven't hit my 5-year mark, but I'm getting close to my 1 year as the director, and I think it really needs looked at.
Well, you guys got your SIPR coming up, so yeah, this is the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as we prepare for our accreditation visit, which isn't for 4 years, I think 3 or 4 years, but I think that would be a good tool for us to use as well, because as you say, you know, people in different courses change assignments, and we need to make sure that the assignments are still connected to the course outcomes and the learning objectives.
I have a quick question here after hearing all what you said, Alice, Marla, and Lane. When you have multiple faculties and they are linked with same course, how can you use this butcher paper approach? Because everyone has their own perspective of knowing that my students need to know this, or someone will say, no, this is more important, my students need to know this. How do you deal with that?
Well, I have coordinators for each of the tracks, so they're the ones that are in charge of that. So it's just one person, and then they may have adjuncts. So I don't really have that problem.
And we have specific outcomes that we have to show our accrediting body that we're meeting. And so regardless of how you do your assignment, you're responsible for these outcomes in your class.
Okay.
I would agree that, so if you, I mean, even if you just looked within the course, so the course description your outcome should lead to your course description being achieved, right? And so if they can link the readings they have, the learning activities they have, the assignments they have, and how those all link to your course outcomes, they might spend more time on one thing than another, and that's okay. But somewhere along the, like if I had an outcome that, you know, that students would understand how to communicate policy change, but I didn't have any assignment or readings aligned to that, now I got a mismatch. So I don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I have to have it there. And then the other thing that's helpful from a program perspective is, you know, like for instance, if I go back to the health policy class, we had 6 sections of it, but everybody taught the same thing. I was the core faculty. I set up the class. People didn't say, I'm not going to do that assignment. I don't like it. Too bad. This is the assignment. I'm handing you the course and you teach it as it is. You can provide feedback. And then when we change the course for next year, then everybody gets the change. So that's the other thing. I meet with all those faculty and we do a debrief. What worked well, what didn't, how would you change it? And then we change it as a group and not someone just unilaterally, you know, taking out 3 assignments because they're going to be on vacation that week. So, which I've seen happen. So that's how we approach it.
And we have a situation where with OT, we have to put forth a standard with 3 different classes. So we may have the same standard, but they're getting introduced to it 3 different times. So what we've recently done is we've created kind of a chart showing what course was this concept first introduced. Now it was introduced at a Bloom's level of just understanding. And now the next course it's in, we've got a little bit higher in the Bloom's, and then the final course is the application. So we're kind of charting out, making sure that, you know, we're not giving that understanding level twice, that concept is growing.
It's leveled.
Yeah.
I
That's a
know
great
a
idea.
while back we did that in the undergraduate curriculum committee, I think. We mapped out the educated citizen goals across different courses. It's been a while, but I remember doing that kind of concept for the different goals in the educated citizen. And that was really instructive to me as a new faculty at that point to do that. It's very helpful.
Well, you know, one of the cool things we did too is we actually have applied the Miller's pyramid to it. So can knows, shows, apply, knows, shows, something like that. I can't remember all the levels, but so that's been kind of interesting to kind of take that aspect and apply it. So the different levels. Hey, Mark, I do have a question for you though.
Okay.
In Brightspace, we have the learning outcomes available in Brightspace. Will that ever be available to us to use as programs and as faculty?
A great question. I'd love to use that too.
Okay. I can certainly dig into that and see what we can do.
Yeah, because we've got something like OT, we have 180 standards that
Okay.
we're constantly trying to map out and manage.
So let me make sure I understand. So looking at like the educated citizen kinds of things as a separate rubric, is that what you're looking at? Or being
Looking
able
at
to
our
apply that, or
looking at our accrediting standards
Okay,
and
great.
mapping them across our courses.
Multiple courses.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot of work to be taking those and trying to map them out on our own, in our own ways of trying to figure it out. If we can somehow connect them to the courses and to the learning objectives within those courses, and then tying it from the assignment over, that would, I think, be a time saver in a
Okay.
way.
Well, and then you wouldn't have to worry, do I have the latest version of this Excel spreadsheet? Because the
Exactly.
version control is about enough to make you cray cray. So, I mean, I think that, you know, we do, if we could link it right in Brightspace and have this living document, then when it came to our accreditation, we'd just print that or send that link and there it would be. And I, you know, I wouldn't have to,
Mhm.
yeah.
So when that accrediting body comes in, you just print it out and go, here you go.
Bless their little heart. It'd be right there for them.
Exactly. You can look all you want.
Okay.
That would save a lot.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that'd be life changing.
Yeah.
Good to know. If I were going, who wants to take that on if I were and partner with me to help look at that, if I were to dig deeper into that? Anybody
As long as
interested?
it's after the beginning of May.
Yeah.
I've got so much on my board up here that it would have to be. But I would love to dig a little deeper into that. And especially there's some new tools coming along too that may really fit into putting that in an easy to use method.
Yeah.
And your version control really hit me right square between the eyes too, Alice. Of I think that's a nightmare for people right now.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
And so I'm really looking at how do I open that communication and control that version control a little bit better for everybody and make it simpler.
Mhm.
So I want to look into some of those and after forum. So Elaine and who else wants to get in on this? Michelle, after forum, let's really start to look at what that looks like and how we might be able to address that with some of the tools we have available.
You know, Mark, I'm happy to participate in that also.
Okay, great.
I'm hesitant to commit to a bunch of meetings though, but
No,
I'm happy to participate.
That's not my mode of operation is not to
Okay.
do a bunch of meetings.
All right, then sign me up.
Okay. It's let's talk about what do you need and let me go do some research and I'll come back and tell you what I think. And
Yeah,
We'll do
I'm
that
happy to represent the nursing aspect of it.
yeah, that would be great. And that's really what I'm looking for because there's some great tools within Brightspace, but also some other tools available. We
And
may
if
look at.
it could almost auto connect, like when I put those outcomes in the course, if there'd be a way that it automatically populate. I know I'm asking for the world now, but then it wouldn't even require, there'd be no human sort of error issue there. It'd be just a done deal.
Okay.
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind listening in on all this
Okay.
and how to do it.
Great.
Well, then it would pull the artifact that you need too.
Yeah.
Like if you say, item 1.1 attaches to these rubrics and to this test question and to these things, and then you just put in 1.1 and you've got all the artifact you need.
Now you are asking for the world, aren't you?
Yeah.
That would be awesome though.
And if it's not there, let's create it.
Let's use AI to create it for you so you don't even have to do it, right?
Exactly. We could make millions.
Mark, from this, I remember one thing. Have you already created a TNT for how to attach the TEC rubrics for our assignments? Already?
That should be out, well. For Educate, I don't know if that's out there or not, so I'll have to dig. Jackie, do you know? Is that the EC rubrics connecting to
if-
their class?
If Will is the one that put the educated citizen rubrics in your courses, if that's required in your course. So if you go into your course tools and your course admin,
Okay.
there's just a rubrics area right there. If there's an educated citizen there, it will display all of them. And then if there's a particular assignment or assessment that you're using, you just need to attach that educated citizen rubric with it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I have to go to the course tool or course admin, and from there I can attach the rubric. That's what you said.
Well, you'll attach first you want to see if the rubrics are there, because Will is the one that puts the rubrics in your course. So if you need those in your course and they're not there, you need to contact Will Roberts.
Okay.
If they do already exist in your course, if you see them in there in your listing of rubrics, then you'll just, when you go and create the assignment or the discussion or, you know, if you're attaching it to something else within your course, then you'll just go ahead and when you add it as a graded item, then you'll have that option to add a rubric as well.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll do
Welcome.
that.
I was kind of interested. Did anybody notice the VoiceThread software that he mentioned in the second video?
I've never used it.
We
I
used
had-
to use VoiceThread years and years ago. Jenny Curley actually used it with one of her courses. Basically what it is, it's kind of like using Video Note. If you use Video Note in Brightspace, it's kind of the same concept. It's just strictly, you know, a discussion where you put up, you know, if you're discussing something and then they just respond by way of video, which you can accomplish the same thing using VoiceThread or a Video Note in your course.
Great. Thanks, Jackie.
Sure.
I know a few of you, oh, go ahead, Bashwani.
No, I'm saying in the second video, the thing which I really liked, and I'm thinking about using it if possible in one of my asynchronous online class, that is if I can ask the students, at least for one discussion assignment, to make videos rather than putting their information in the discussion board, if they can put videos. And here the speaker said there are 4 points which they want in those videos. One is the elaboration, then the personal approach, and the application and the distinctiveness. So I think that might make the students feel a more interactive, even in an asynchronous environment. So that is right now my thoughts. I mean, if you want to add something to that.
You know, you can also, Bashwati, when they go in, they can, not only can you do it through as an assignment, you know, as a submission, a text submission, they can add a video note in there, but they can also do that in a discussion, is just by using video note. They don't have to do any text, but there's always that option to do it. Now, depending on what else you're looking for them to do videos for, you know, students can also have a USIA account. It's an LTI that can be used within Brightspace, and they can record on their iPad, store the video in their USIA cloud account, and then just link to it so that everybody can have access to it. The only thing about using it in an assignment type of environment is that that assignment is only to you. So if it was something that you wanted them to share, they could either, in a discussion area, they could either do it as a video note, or they could create, you know, a presentation or a video in USIA using USIA or on their iPad, you know, and then storing it in their USIA account and then just making a link to it in the discussion. So depends on how you want to approach that. There's a lot of different options there.
Thank you, Jackie. Actually, I like the UJA idea, because UJA idea will not remain limited to only that course, and only because video notes can't be transported, right, in between the courses, whereas UJA can be more universal, I think.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, you know, they get their own user account, and you know, we can plug it right into your Brightspace course, and there's all kinds of, you know, how-tos on how to use it, and very simple to do. Very even like you said, video note doesn't transfer through, but USIA is always going to be there, and it will remain there until they delete it or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, let me know if you need help on that.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
I also used Flipgrid this last semester for my students who are out on fieldwork. So I had them create a Flipgrid for all 25 of them, and then had them watch each other's Flipgrids and respond with, and some of them responded text, and some of them responded with a return video. And that was really fun to watch and to see their progress and things that they are doing. And stuff while, because they're all over the country right now. So that was kind of fun to use that.
Work.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I have heard a lot about Flipgrid. Actually, Mark and Heather showed us how to use Flipgrid, but I have nearly not gone past the basic usage. But Flipgrid, I have heard, has so many other features which they can use, right?
Yeah, I ran into this one time. They've changed some of their security stuff on it, so I have to figure that part out. I had a little bit of trouble where I had to go in and actually accept all of them, but I think it was user error on my side. So I have to learn how to do that a little bit better. But yeah.
It probably, I'm trying to remember the term I'm missing, but there's one where the faculty member actually has to go in and acknowledge that this is an acceptable video before it gets published to the rest of the group.
And it's because I
So,
have it set private, or I had it set public.
yeah,
So it's somewhere in that setup that you have to do it, but I haven't figured that out very well.
you still have to go in and make sure that you're not trying to, censor is not the word, but you get to accept it before it's actually published, even if it is public. So I can help you find that setting. But that's certainly a tool. The other one I was kind of interested in is anybody working with shared whiteboards.
I'm
I-
planning, but really not get a chance to.
That
do
would be
that.
one I would take a peek at. Specifically, Microsoft Whiteboard is kind of a powerful tool out there that all of the students have access to. And I know, Lane, you've used that in your class a couple of times. When I look around here in the engagement center, I see students writing on whiteboards all over the place. And it's their kind of preferred learning method in a lot of cases. And I wonder if we started leveraging some of that ability to start sharing whiteboards, either as a group or as individuals or as a class. There's lots of ways to build shared whiteboards using Microsoft Whiteboard.
Yeah,
But
actually, from,
they have to have the iPad, right?
What's that?
They have to have the iPad?
Actually not. You can use that shared whiteboard from Microsoft on any device. It might be a little bit easier with a pencil or a device that has a stylus, but I can go in and put a sticky note on and put text in it. So I can go ahead and use a text message or text method. I can use my finger on trackpads. I can do lots of different ways to do that whiteboard piece without just having an iPad. So don't feel like it's something you have to have that way. And that will allow you to drop images in and people can label images. There's lots of ways to leverage that whiteboard. And it certainly doesn't require the iPad.
I told my husband about it and he's using it with his physics classes.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool. So those
it's
are
a
two
living
tools.
document, right? It's a living document.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's nice is you can decide if you want to be just an individual sharing your whiteboard so people can look at the whiteboard. It stays out there, so it's something that's continually updatable, but you can also choose to have everybody contribute to the whiteboard. So I could write something tonight and tomorrow, Baswati, you could hop on and add your comments to the whiteboard and we could really make it just a group whiteboard to share and everybody's contributing whenever they want, both synchronous and asynchronous.
Yeah, it's great for helping the students learn how to solve a physics problem, and they're working on it collaboratively and trying to figure out what the next step is, and it's kind of cool.
So this is going to be a really selfish question, but I'm going to ask it.
Fire
So
away.
we have our program orientation, and because of COVID, we're going to do it virtual.
Uh-huh.
And in the past, when we do it in the past, I would have a burning questions whiteboard. People were all present in the room.
Uh-huh.
And students could go up and write a burning question, or they could ask something and I'd say, I'm going to put it here and we'll make sure we answer it at the end. So is this something where I could create it and I could send it out to all the students prior to our virtual orientation, and people could collectively add to it? So I would simulate a burning questions whiteboard for the start of orientation?
Sure.
Yeah, I just found that it's easier if you put them into smaller groups than having everybody on the same whiteboard.
Oh yeah, because there'll be 75 people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so group them. You can do the same question to every group.
Oh, great idea. Well, I wrote it down, so it might happen.
Good. And if you need help with it, as Lane can tell you, I'll be glad to come into a class and sit down and work through it with you. So
Okay.
if there's anything you want to test and just say, hey, I'd love to try this, but I want somebody else there to help me if and when it fails.
Yeah,
glad to be there.
students
I'm
had to
hopeful for the
sign
same.
into it, and that took a little, that was a steep learning curve for me. And Mark was great because I decided about 5-10 minutes before the class started that it would be a good thing to do that day. It's like, okay, here we go.
Right? It's fun to try, and I'd be more than happy to help out. Or if you want to use me as just a guinea pig and test it on me,
Okay.
and try sharing a whiteboard and see if it works and see how it works, I'd be glad to do that too. So any
So
way I can help.
They
don't
have-
hesitate.
As long as they have a Word, Microsoft products, they can use it.
As long as they have a Microsoft product, which all of our students should have access to Microsoft 365,
Mhm.
so they can download Whiteboard. And we've been doing a lot of things with virtual study groups. We've been doing a lot of things with a lot of different ways to leverage that. And as we move forward, I'm really looking at more powerful ways to communicate and collaborate. And you'll be seeing more of that coming soon on what we're doing. And that's kind of why I'm asking some of these questions now, to get you kind of thinking in that direction. But this is certainly a tool that's been around and is free for our students to use.
So Mark, is it possible that just like you are organizing these Apple sessions, that if you can organize a whiteboard session so that all the faculty can come and just get to explore all the features? I mean, even though you have shown me some of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we could do that. So we could just have a session just on whiteboarding, and we could all jump in and just do a whiteboarding session together. I'd be glad to.
Mark, could we do that as a
I think
lunch?
lots of students has the whiteboard because I used it. It's just like Lane, kind of Lane. I just out of blue asked the student last year in the Chem Lab that, oh guys, do you have whiteboard? Let's try it out, because I never tried that. All of them had it on the
Yeah.
iPad, 20 students each session. So I was kind of surprised. So I assume that most of them has
Yeah,
it.
I talk to a
It's
lot of the
fun.
students
Oh,
out here. When I see them drawing on the glass out here, I walk in a lot of times and just show them that, hey, you can have this, and instead of having the cleaning crew wipe your glass off tonight, you can have it there permanently and you can all share. So I try to teach students to do that over here. But it's there. Lane, you had a comment as well?
I just was asking if that would be a good lunch and learn.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to help facilitate that.
Great.
Oh, okay, yeah, Lane, I'll be able to come in case if the time works. I would like to be, join that
Would an
session.
early fall lunch and learn be okay, or would you prefer it earlier?
I think just based on kind of timing, I think something sooner would be better.
After May, Lane, after May.
That's my concern.
After May 12 would be great. Forum would be a good time. Anything after forum, because right now, up until forum, I'm crazy. But at the same time,
Do
what's
we
that?
offer lunch and learns over the summer?
We can't. I mean, we can
I don't think we
offer
typically
whatever.
do that, but
If you want to wait till fall, we can.
so I can,
in the past, we didn't have during the summer lunch and learn, only for fall and
Yeah.
spring, right, Lane?
right.
And Elise, yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Okay. All right. I think we're probably getting down to the last couple of minutes. Anything else that anybody needs to get in before we wrap things up for today?
I have a non-related question to our topic. If I
Okay.
want to insert Turnitin into Brightspace, this is the first time I'm going to do it for this summer. I cannot create it in the sandbox. I have to wait and create it in the individual sections where people will be enrolled. Is that correct?
Yes, and the reason being, Alice, is because we only have one site license. And since we have 2 sites in Brightspace, our test site, we can't put it on both, or we'd have to pay another license fee.
Okay, so but the students don't actually have to be put into Brightspace yet. I can put it into Brightspace once I have access to the course.
Yeah, yep, it's very simple to do, real simple to do.
You say that, Jackie, you say that.
Trust me, I'll get you through it.
Well, I know you'll get me through it, but I'd like to do it without assistance so I don't bother you.
Well, don't feel like you're bothering me. That just think of as job security.
Okay, well, yes, your job is very secure. If you go,
I have to go. I have a student to come. So
Bye,
it's good to
Ava.
see you,
Thank
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great
We can wrap
conversation.
up here. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Have a great
Bye.
week, and thanks for the participation this week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good day.
Bye.